All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Forge Your Life podcast. Here today with your host, Richard Fu from richardfu.com. And today, guys, I have a real farmer on the show here today. It excites me. Seriously, it excites me to have a farmer on the show because he's not just any normal farmer. And this guy is known as the Unbreakable farmer. He has determination, he has grit, he has resilience, he has persistence. And to be a farmer in today's world, and where he's from Australia. You know, it's a modern world, and it's unusual to hear people who actually give up, you know, living in the metropolitan city and want to go out into the rural world and actually get back with nature. And that's why I'm excited to have him on the show. His name is Warren Davies. He is the Unbreakable farmer. And today he's going to share with us a little bit more about why he did that and how you can actually learn to follow within your own journey and keep going through it even when you're experiencing the tough times. But enough from me. Let's get the Unbreakable farmer on the show. Warren, welcome to the show, brother.
G'day, Richard. How are you?
Man,
good to be on your show.
Yeah, man, I'm pumped to have you on here. And I know, guys, right now we're shooting at it. It's like, you know, almost 8 o'clock Warren's time. And man, I'm telling you, that's pretty late for farmer time, right? Man, you're going to bed soon, right, Warren?
No time to get back up again. Yeah, so.
Oh, amazing, dude. And so, Warren, for the people who haven't heard about you or your work, man, could you share a bit more about, I guess, how you got into this and how you actually help people nowadays?
Yeah, so I suppose what I did is I knew that I had a story within me that I needed to share, and I tried to pursue that as far as looking for an avenue to do that. And I did a speaking course, and that, I suppose, teased out my story more, because like being a farmer, I thought everyone does what I do, and that's just the way life is. But within, and I think everyone has that as well. There's a story within your story, and it teased out my story and found that there is something of value that I've gone through. Obviously, you know, as I said, everyone's story has those bits in it, but yeah, my story was of resilience and persistence and determination, of going through the ups and downs of being a farmer. And I realised then, because I've had a couple of patches outside of farming where I realised that it's not only farming, it's that is in business in general, or in life in general. And, you know, and I could adapt those stories to anyone's situation and be able to deliver a story that can be impactful to them.
Beautiful, man. And I love what you're sharing here, because it's kind of like what one of my mentors once said, Harv Eker. He said that, you know, how you do anything is how you do everything. And then you were clearly summing that up by, you know, your resilience, your persistence through the farming, but also translating to business, into life.
It's about the hard work, and that's it. And farmers are renowned for working hard, and that's what I take into what I do now. You know, you just got to work hard at it. You got to persist, and if you don't persist, you just fall by the wayside.
Well said, man. And so talk us through this, man. I mean, like you didn't grow up in a farming family, right? From what I understand. And so talk us through this, and what made you made that shift, man, to step away from, you know, the metropolitan life and into, you know, the rural life?
Yeah, well, I suppose I didn't have much say in that. I was a 15-year-old kid, and my dad had a dream of being a farmer, and he one school holidays we went looking. He went looking for a farm, found one, and basically we moved. And it was exactly today when we moved. Because I can remember it was the September school holidays. We come up to the area where I am now, and Dad looked around for a farm. And by Cup Day, which today is Melbourne Cup Day here in Victoria, we were moving today, or whatever it was, 30 or 37 years ago, or whatever it was. And so, but it was a good shift for me because I was struggling at school, and I thought, well, yeah, a new change, a change of scenery. I was struggling at school, both academically and, you know, in school friends, and, you know, the bullying thing, the whole bit. So moving away from Melbourne was a hard thing because the family, and like the family that we left behind, but it was also a good thing. It was a fresh start and gave me a new direction.
Wow, man. So you're like you got sucked into it because it was your dad's dream. And then
Yeah.
how did you transform that into your own dream? I mean, like 15 years old, at that age, I mean, you could have been doing a lot of other things, probably exposed to a lot of other things too. But then what was the one thing about farming that just made you go, oh, Dad, I really love this too?
I suppose we had it was the motorbikes and the tractors. I'll be real. No, but we had family friends that had farms, and we'd spend school holidays and that. So I had a bit of an idea of what it was, but it was a very romantic view of what farming was back in those days. And yeah, it was the motorbikes and the tractors and all that. But I did have a passion for the animals as well. And as I said, I was struggling at school, and even though we did move and things looked up, like in sporting terms and that for me, moving to the country, my academic school, I'd had enough of school, and I can remember I just said to Mum one day that at the end of the school year, I wasn't really going that well. I just said, I don't want to go back, and she said, well, if you're not going back, you have to have a job. So I went on there and then went on searching for that job and found one within a week, and yeah, the rest was history. Didn't go back to school.
Yeah, yeah. And what was that job, man? Were you working on your own farm, or was that?
No, I worked for a fella, and like he was one of the best farmers in the district, and that's where I learnt my trade as such. I didn't do an apprenticeship or anything like that. I just worked for him and learnt the skills that I needed to learn, all by trial and error. And that's also something that I try and share when I speak, obviously not to farmers, but to even business owners. You've got to learn by that trial and error. So if I made mistakes, I learned how to fix them. I become a problem solver, just not consciously, but subconsciously, because that wasn't called problem solving. It was just, there was a problem, you fixed it. So it was problem solving, but in a different, it wasn't, in that technical term. It was just something that you learnt along the way.
Yeah, and I love what you're saying here, man, because you're saying as a farmer, I mean, like, you had to be not just a problem solver, you just had to be resourceful. You had to know, it's like you're going to, you're getting mentored, and you say, hey, there's a problem here. I'm pretty sure who he said, so what are you going to do to fix it? It's not.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, and you had to think on your feet. Sometimes, obviously, there was a method in how you went about it, but sometimes it was just something was wrong. You had to, look inside your knowledge and say, well, how would I fix this? And it mightn't have been the right way, but as long as things kept moving and you had a crack and tried to fix it anyway. So.
Yeah, and I love that you bring this up, and this is especially important, I think, for business, and I love it that you talk to business people about this, is like there needs to be, I think, room for people to make mistakes. So when you're hiring a team, when you're building your team, there has to be room for them to make mistakes, but then it's not enough for them to say, hey, Richard, or, hey, Warren, I screwed up, and then you have to go fix it. And this is what I do in my own business. Like, okay, you screwed up, so what are you going to do to fix it? It's not enough to tell me you screwed up. I'm not fixing it, right? You screwed it up. Take responsibility for it. Go fix it. And then show me what you do. And if you can't fix it and you tried, then we're going to work it out together. Is that what
Exactly what you're saying. And that's where, when I teased my stories out to be able to deliver them in a workshop or whatever environment, in a keynote speech, is all these things that just happen as progression were actually exactly what you're saying. Like I stuffed up, like I broke something, and my boss said, well, how are you going to fix it? There's the welder, there's the, I didn't know how to weld, but I did after I'd done that a couple of times. But, that's your problem. And it was about owning the problem, and not just having that employee's mentality of saying, oh, well, I broke it, it's your farm, you fix it. It was, I owned the problem, so I fixed it, and it taught me a lot of responsibility on being responsible. Even though for those first 7 years that was my job, like it was just a job, I owned it as if it was my own.
Yeah, and I love that mentality that you bring up here. And so talk us through this, man. I mean, like, with anyone, I've been through a lot as well, and I'm sure you have as well. And when you're going through like struggles, when you're going through the tough times, especially as a farmer, man, it's like almost every season there might be a struggle somewhere in it. What keeps you going, man? What do you tell yourself that keeps your fire burning inside that you just keep pushing through?
It's just that you've got to have a passion for what you're doing. But there obviously is times, and that's what I speak about, times when you can't get yourself up out of bed and keep going, and that's that's when the hard part comes, and that's when you really got to draw on your internal fortitude to just keep going. It was there was obviously some really, really tough times on the farm where you just didn't want to get out of bed. You knew that you were losing money every day. It was just a real tough gig, but you learn. That's where you build that resilience, and you can be born with resilience, and you can also build it as well. And that's what happened to me through my journey is just that constant, as you said, season to season. There was always something. It's just about being able to then cope with what was going on, and then what we just spoke about, being resourceful and being able to then push forward and just keep striving for your goal. It was important, especially on the farm, to have goals, and we had 3-month goals, 12-month goals, a 5-year and a 10-year plan of where we wanted to be. And obviously things were tough, and then you just have to say, well, no, but we're still heading in the right direction. It mightn't be the way we thought we were going to be heading in it, but we're still heading in that direction to achieve that goal at the end of the 12 months or 5 years or whenever it was.
Yeah. Wow, got you, man, got you. And so then let me ask you this question here, Warren. This is what always interests me is, when people are talking about resilience, when people are talking about persistence, it's very much like a internal thing, right? It's I'm doing it for myself. I'm going to push for myself. I keep going. And then, sometimes I think, right, if we lay too much foundation in the resilience and persistence side of things, we can get, how do I say, it's not arrogant, but it's like that we don't want to ask for help. We don't want to reach out for help. And so how do you balance that fine line, man, of knowing that, you got to keep pushing for yourself? And then when is the right time for you, or when do you consider the time to ask for help?
And that question's a good question. And that was my undoing. That was when everything fell apart. You've hit it on the head there, because obviously I was tarred with a double brush. One, I'm a man, and two, I'm a farmer.
Yeah.
Not a very good combination when it comes to asking for help. You've got to be that stoic person that, is resourceful and is resilient and all that sort of stuff, and is able to push through everything. But at some stage, enough's enough, and you do have to ask for help, whether that's, either through your support network, as far as, your consultants or your banks or whatever it is, but it's also a personal thing as well, that you can get yourself, as I did, into a fairly dark spot that it takes a bit of getting out of if you don't ask for that help, and asking for that help early enough. And I suppose I don't like to use it saying man enough to ask for the help, but realising within yourself and knowing who you are that it's time to ask for that help. And that's very important, because the result of not asking for that help can be fairly detrimental to yourself and your family.
And I love that you said this one line. You said you didn't want to say it, but it's true. It's, being man enough to ask for help. And I like that you use it, because it's a flip side, right? So often that we thought, you got to be man enough, you got to do it by yourself. But it takes a whole different level of courage actually for a man to step up and go, look, really, Warren, I really need help right now. And put themselves in that vulnerable state to just ask for help, isn't it, man?
Yeah, no, and it is. And it's a vulnerable state that, you don't want to, you feel that you don't want to be into, but it can be empowering at the same time to be vulnerable and expose your inner feelings, because it can help you move forward and get you to a different place. Otherwise it just eats you up, and it eats you from the inside out, and all of a sudden everything's a mess and you can't fix it. Where if you ask for that help early enough, and to use that phrase again, be man enough to say, right, I just need this help. It can be short term, it can be long term, it depends. But the longer that you leave it without asking for help, the problem just festers and gets bigger. And as the old saying goes, you make a mountain out of a molehill if you don't ask for the help.
Yeah, man. Yeah, and then you need that huge tractor to knock down that molehill.
That's it. Yeah, like it's just it becomes something can be, and you get to the stage where I got to, and sometimes it can be insurmountable. What feels like it is, and that spiral just becomes quicker and quicker. And instead of just plateauing and feeling like that there's no way out or whatever, it can just keep spiraling down at a really quick rate if you get past that tipping point of when you should have asked for help.
Wow, amazing, man. And I'm glad that we nailed this one down, because so often everyone talks about just keep going, but then there's always a flip side to it. And I'm glad that you were able to honestly share that part of that experience that you were going through, man. And so then where do we take ourselves then, man? I mean, like after, and actually one question I want to ask is in the resilience side of things, Warren, is like sometimes there has to be a time we have to let it go, right? Sometimes there have to be a time where you call it quits because it's actually not working. And talk us through that, and how do you apply that in your life as the Unbreakable farm, and where else has it shown up in your life?
Sometimes you do have to let it go, and I got told by a mentor and a good mate one time that he goes, "You're like a fox terrier. You latch onto something and you won't let go." And he said that all, and he was like a business leader, and he said that can also be detrimental to you moving forward as well. Like it's all good saying, be resilient, persistence, and determined, and keep going, but sometimes you've got to stop, take stock of where you are, to be able to move forward again. And whether that's in continuing in that same direction, or whether it's just maybe slightly changing course. It's still getting to your obviously your main objective, but you might just take a different course of how to get there. That's that. But that's you can I suppose hold on to something too long.
Yeah.
And sometimes you've just got to let it go, and that was with me with the farming. Like we fought for 2 years through the worst drought in Victoria's history to hold on to that farm, going from like $180,000 profit to a $200,000 loss in 18 months. It's just massive, but we thought it was ours. It was our identity of who we were, and we just wanted to fight so hard. But come a day where we just had to say, no, enough's enough. We had to draw that line in the sand, and that's basically with the story. The sad or the good part depends which side of the line that you were on. Is that we just basically had to walk off our farm in the middle of the drought. So, that's you've just got to sometimes just take stock of where you're at, and that might mean assessing where you're at, and then you can continue moving forward, or just slightly alter your course.
Wow, man. And I totally understand, and I agree with what you're saying here. With sometimes we hold on to things for too long. If we're holding on to something, we don't have the ability to go get something else, to have something else, to allow something else to come into our lives. And I love the story that you bring up here, that the moment you walk off from your farm during the drought, then what happened next, man? Tell us what happened next. What did you create room for?
Well, basically we'd been through a really, really tough 2 years, and mentally, for me, my mental health, that 2 years was very draining. But we walked away from that to what we thought, and this is where the journey has its ups and downs, what we thought was going to be more family time. It was managing a major corporate farm. I was going to be using my skills, different skills, not just hands-on skills as in doing the labour work, but was using my knowledge of what I acquired over the 20 years that I was 20-odd years that I'd been farming, was how I could help run a farm more efficiently. So we went to do that, but that was a job and it was probably a knee-jerk reaction to the struggle that we'd been through, thinking, well, this sounds like a dream job. This does, it was close to the beach and all that. Well, bottom line is, I didn't see the beach while we were there. It was just to we're just trying to think of the word. It was too good to be true, I suppose, at the end of the day. So we were at that job, that didn't work out. So basically bouncing from a job to a job over the next probably 4 to 5 years, because I didn't know where I was, because losing our farm, not only that, it was not just the farm, it was our everything. Like, it was our 24/7, it was our home, it was something that, we'd put everything into financially and everything. It was where I brought my family up. So we basically, we felt, and I definitely felt this, that I'd lost my identity. So I just had to keep going. But so that journey just created, basically, until I let that go, which we were talking about, until I let that idea go that, the farm's gone. And even though farming's something I can do with my hands tied behind my back, I needed to let it go more to let something else come in. And until I got to that stage, I tried some other things along the way. Until I let that go, what I'm doing now didn't enter my life, until I let it go and realised that there was a bigger purpose to what I've got in the world, like to offer. And it's not just being a farmer. There was a bigger thing to offer. And since I made that decision to let that happen, lots of other great things have now come into my life. Like being on your podcast is one of them, like one of those things. But like, I'm an ambassador for a children's charity now, and I'm Cottage by the Sea, it's called, and I do youth mentoring at our local school with a kid that's with one kid every 6 months that's struggling and not engaged at school, and all these things that have opened up to me now that wouldn't have if I hadn't have let go of that dream and then created another one.
Oh, wow, man. It is huge. And I love that you paint that story that it didn't just happen like the moment you let go of the farm. It took you many years of struggle and persistence to work through it, to try and to figure out and to test things, so to see if that's really for you. And after all of that, then you get rewarded. And that's a beautiful part, man.
Well, that's right. And that's probably one thing I always talk about is the sowing and reaping, that metaphor from farming, that, that when you really tease out your story, and this could be for anyone in any situation, you tease your story out and then you start seeing some things, and then you can create or link them back to metaphors like the sowing and reaping. Well, you just have to keep sowing to be able to reap the crop. Sometimes your crops fail, sometimes they don't. And then you can reap the rewards. And that's what's happening now that I've done enough sowing, and the crops are starting to succeed, and I'm able to reap the rewards of that, and starting to build a business where I can share my story either through my keynote speaking or my workshops or whatever, and help people navigate their way through their business or personal life.
Awesome. Well, Warren, man, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. We're going to start wrapping up the show now. And as we wrap up, we're going to head into our quick fire question rounds. I'm going to start with our signature one here, Warren. It's what we call the time travel moment. And in this question here, I'd like to ask you, Warren, if you could go back to any time in your life and speak to little Warren and give him one piece of advice that you know today, when would you go back to him? What would you tell him?
Oh, I could go back to many stages in my life, but I suppose what I would go back to a 14 or 15-year-old Warren and say, have confidence that you're able to achieve what you want to achieve in life, and don't just accept that, accept the norm, and just, step outside the box and have the confidence to be able to pursue your dreams and be persistent at them, and just keep chipping away, because it mightn't come, as we've discussed, it mightn't come straight away, but it will come if you're persistent enough.
Awesome, man. Awesome. The next question I have for you, Warren, is I'm sure you maybe have read a few books about persistence and resilience, right? And if you have, for the people who are listening here, and watching, what book would you recommend is a total must read for them?
I've probably, with the time, I've read lots of books, but and books like the Tony Robbins books and stuff like that. Just they were the start of my journey, I suppose. Because leaving school early, obviously, reading wasn't one of my major things that I did in a younger life. But then I did start reading, and I started reading like the Tony Robbins and how to awaken that passion within you, and that was probably one of those first. Awaken the Giant is one of those first books that I read that started me thinking on a different thinking level than what I was previously. So that's probably a good one to start with. But there's many great books out there, and also if you're not into reading, that's one thing I've learned is that get onto podcasts and that you can absorb knowledge on a different level. You don't have to sit there and read. You can actually absorb, especially in this fast-paced world that we live in, that you can get that knowledge and you can listen over and over if you have to. But and it's like reading books. Every time I've read a book over, I've always picked up something else because I've moved. I feel I've moved. My thinking has moved from the first time I read it to the second time I've read it. So I pick up stuff that I missed the first time because you're at a different thinking level.
Awesome, man. We'll add that to the show notes. One of my favorite books too, man.
Yeah.
The last question here I have for you, Warren, is we talked a lot about resilience. We talked a lot about being persistent, and the word unbreakable is what you're known for. And so, how would you define, what it means to be truly, truly unbreakable?
The way if I can explain how I got the Unbreakable Farmer, we did a workshop through this speaking course, and I told my story, just raw and unpracticed. Just got up and told my story. And everyone in the room said, "Oh, you're the Unbreakable Farmer," and that's how I got that. That's how I got the name. But I suppose that name or that brand or whatever you want to call it is the ability to be able to be knocked down and get back up again and keep striving, and then get knocked down again and get up and keep striving and knocked down again. And it's just that persistent cycle. If you get knocked down, you've got to get up, dust yourself off, and keep moving forward. That's what it means to me.
Awesome, man. Awesome. And so, as we wrap up the show here, Warren, is there any final words you wanted to add or anything you wanted to share that we didn't get a chance to discuss about on the show today?
No, just I suppose I think we touched on it, and the most important thing, I suppose, especially for the men that are listening, is that or watching, is to make sure that you're not too tough to ask for help. And if you feel that you need to get some help, and if it's not with a friend, with somebody, just be able to share if you're going through a tough time, because someone might have been through that same scenario and have some resources that they use to be able to get through it. So you just never know till you ask the question or talk to somebody. You think you're the only person in the world that's going through it at the time, but many people have been through it and many people have found a way out. So, yeah.
Awesome, man. Awesome. And so, Warren, thank you for jumping on the show, man. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. And I'd love to know, and for the people who are listening and watching that want to connect with you, where's the best place they can go and connect with you?
Also, a number of platforms, obviously, but Facebook at the Unbreakable Farmer on Facebook, or at my website, which is www.theunbreakablefarmer.com.au.
Awesome. Thank you again, Warren, for jumping on, man, and just not bending to my will today.
No worries. Thanks, Richard. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome, man. And so, guys, this wraps up another episode of the Forge Your Life podcast here with the Unbreakable Farmer, Warren Davies. And I know Warren doesn't want this to be a secret. This message can't be a secret. We need to pass this message on. And so the only way we can get that out there is to make sure that more people hear about Warren's message and everyone else's who has been on the show here. So please head on over to iTunes and give us a rating. You know, plant 1 seed if you think it was okay, 5 seeds if you think it was awesome, so that we can get it out there more to more people. And of course, guys, you can go on over to richardfood.com to grab all the show notes and everything that Warren has shared here on the show. And remember to go out there, go live with love, and go smash it. And I'll see you again on the next one.